This is FM One Shots, a series of single-season campaigns where we try to upstage real-life managers by outperforming them in the 22-23 season. We've overachieved in the first half of the season, currently sitting in second place, just 4 points off Man City and with a 5-point buffer between us and 5th place Brentford. The World Cup reached its climax with Germany crowned champions, and domestic football is once again back upon us. We return to action with a trip to ambiguously named to comply with the licensing restrictions Manchester Red Stadium. Man Ultimate Fighting Championship, led by Eddie Ninehags, had a slow start to the season, but started to find form before the World Cup break. The homunculus Emi Buendia is set to miss the next 3 weeks, whilst Watkins and Camara are only fit enough for the bench for a Boxing Day game in Arctic conditions. No good can ever come from a highlight in the 93rd minute. A spirited performance came undone as son of Eric's shot deflected into the path of Alex Ganache, and the young Argentine broke our hearts. The Claret Satans have been the better sides admittedly, but the difference was marginal, and to lose it so late into the game is absolutely galling. A 14-game unbeaten run comes to an end. Manager of the season candidate Marco Silva is not having quite as good a time in the virtual world as Fulham languish in 17th place, just outside the relegation zone. With British icons Lily Allen, Richard Osman and Scorpio counted amongst their tens of fans, it's not fair they'll leave this game pointless. Hurrah! Watkins and Camara returned to the starting lineup, but this was the Leon Bailey show. After Bernd Leno spilled a corner, Fry calmly laid it back for the Jamaican winger to curl the ball into the far corner from the edge of the area. A second followed shortly thereafter as Bailey rose to head in Moreno's deep lofted cross. With the first half coming to a close, it was game over. Bailey fed Ashley Young on the right, and after beating his man, he drilled the ball low for Watkins to make it 3-0. A perfect response to our defeat only 3 days prior. There was still time for a fourth, and an opportunity for Bernd Leno's game to get even worse. A poor parry from McGinn's effort fell at Duran's feet, and the Colombian is unlikely to score an easier goal. It was a comfortable win against a struggling side. Whilst we never really got out of first gear, we didn't need to. Mitrovic spurned a chance at 3-0, but by that time the game was pretty much already over. We welcome another West London side to Villa Park, and this time it's Todd Boehly vanity project Chelsea. Unhappy with the possession-heavy but goal-scoring light approach of Graham Potter, they have replaced him with the possession-heavy but goal-scoring light approach of Luis Enrique. At least they have an identity. It's New Year's Day, and cognizant of the excesses of the night before, both teams played out the first half at a gentle tempo. The second half, however, was an ode to drunken revelry, as blurred vision and a painful lack of spatial awareness won out. Koulibaly heading home from a corner without even needing to jump, Watkins left to run through unopposed to equalise, then Havertz just ignored entirely in a 4-minute spell that brought the game to life. Chelsea looked on course for the win, but the New Year celebrations eventually caught up. Traoré, on as a substitute against his former club, equalised with just 2 minutes remaining. No good can ever come from a highlight in the 95th minute, unless it's a Bertie Traoré winner. An unlikely comeback, and that galling feeling from just 2 games ago has been replaced with absolute euphoria. A draw would have been a fair result, but I'm not complaining. That said, I reserve the right to conveniently forget about this game when we inevitably lose games unfairly in the future. Talking of inevitable defeat, it's the trip to the Etihad next. Man City have dropped only 7 points so far this season, and despite being the league's top scorers, Stanley Tucci lookalike Pep Guardiola is not happy. Rodrigo has arrived from Real Madrid for £73 million and adds to a front line that clearly needed improving, with only Grealish, Foden, Mahrez, Alvarez and Bernardo Silva available. Silva obviously can play in central midfield, as he does today, with Rodrigo making his debut. The Portuguese wizard is involved in the opening goal, in a section I like to call foreshadowing. It's a debut goal for Rodrigo just 3 minutes in, and could only be made worse if Man City score another quickly. Another Haaland header from a corner, and a trend is clearly developing with our defending of set pieces. An issue that can't be masked by Jacob Ramsey's late consolation goal. A resounding defeat. Don't be fooled by the relatively close XG. Man City created chances at will, and when you have a player of Haaland's quality at your disposal, XG becomes meaningless. A chance to make amends as we welcome Everton for the return fixture. A slight improvement in their fortunes as they now hover above the relegation zone, bolstered by the return from injury of GQ model Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You might expect some more jokes here, but as a man making videos about a glorified spreadsheet, I'm in no position to pass judgment on people pursuing their hobbies. Our petite playmaker returns as Emi Buendia comes back into the starting lineup, but it is Jacob Ramsey who helps us unlock Everton's stout defence. His ball over the top finds Watkins, who volleys home from close range. Pickford was immense once again, but there was little he could do for Watkins' second. Nathan Patterson makes an absolute meal of clearing Buendia's effort, and Watkins is there to fire in hard and high from 6 yards out. A good performance, a good result. We dominated all phases of the game. Even more importantly, John McGinn came on as a substitute, allowing him to reprise his coat-based feud with Sean Dyche. Can't talk about January and not mention transfers. It's important to take a considered, measured approach, detached from emotion and focused on addressing areas of need. So when Marvellous Nakamba got sent off 11 seconds into a cup game, he was immediately transfer listed and shipped off to West Ham in a loan move that generates absolutely no money for us until after this save is done. It was not quite as petty as perhaps I'd made out. Ludovic Blas had been identified by our scouts. Used as an inverted winger at Nantes, his elite vision and enticing traits makes him an intriguing prospect who could play as a deep-lying playmaker or further up the field if necessary. £12 million and 70k per week, and we had our man. That meant Nakamba, who we only recalled from loan a few months earlier, was now on the outside looking in. We still had some money left, and I was keen to add reinforcements at right back. Matty Cash has been in poor form and lost his place to the sprightly 37-year-old Ashley Young. Augustin Gi will help bring the average age down, but to truly fit in with the Argentinian contingent here, we'll need to change his name to Emiliano. Johan Lang gets the job done for $5.5 million. And with that, January is done. We cling on to second place. Defeat to both Manchester clubs has completely erased the buffer we once had, and now only 2 points separate us from 5th place Manchester United. With Tottenham, Newcastle and Chelsea to play in February, things could quickly look worse. Erling Haaland continues to be unstoppable, and Player of the Month awards for December and January means he's now got 5 in a row. Not to be outdone, Guardiola completes a hat-trick of awards for Manager of the Month. There's some joy for us though, as Jacob Ramsey picks up the Young Player of the Month award for January. It's the only award that's had different winners each month, and might be the only end-of-year award that's still up for grabs. Hickey won the honours for December, and also took home Goal of the Month, as he cut inside and let fly from outside the box to win the award. A fine goal indeed. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg got the award in January, for a goal which, by comparison, was a little underwhelming. Professional bottlers Tottenham look to have settled into 6th spot after a brief flirtation with the Champions League places earlier in the season. Still managed by a man who can only be described as a monumental Conte, they completely folded in an otherwise even game when we met in September. It was a similar game this time around, just without the collapse. A game bogged down in midfield against two teams fielding a 3-4-3. Not an ideal result, but a fair one, as both Emi Martinez and Hugo Lloris earned the highest ratings. Football Manager has not been kind to Newcastle United. Like Tottenham, they pretty much found their place this season, and unfortunately for them, it appears to be 12th. This is good news for us, of course, as it's one less team competing for the top 4. New signings Florentino Luis and Rodrigo Guedes are in the starting 11, but neither can stop us from taking the lead. Watkins' movement is delightful, peeling back to meet the cross, but Nick Pope should have done better, as his header squeezes underneath him. It was a game of redemption for Matty Cash. Sensing his position is under threat, he makes the most of the starting opportunity, getting his second assist as our undersized RG secures the win. Newcastle put up a little fight, which is surprising for a team who, in previous meetings, have been known to at least take the fight to themselves. That was the final straw for Newcastle's owners, and Eddie Howe has been given the axe. Maybe that's not the best term to use. A trip to Stamford Bridge rounds out the month, perhaps hampered by SI having no idea how to model Chelsea's insane disregard for financial fair play. The inventively named Blues have signed no one of note whatsoever. Instead, they look to Arsenal's Kai Havertz and Man United's Mason Mount, who have combined for 25 goals between them. In fact, it's crazy to think that at least half of their lineup in this game may not be there next season. That may be a good thing, as their defence was carved open with ease only 12 minutes in, Ollie Watkins scoring his 24th goal in all competitions. There was an air of familiarity, however, as Koulibaly once again scored from a corner to equalise. At least he had to jump this time. A draw would have been a fair result in our earlier fixture, and was a fair result this time around. Nonetheless, its points dropped in what is becoming a very tight race for a Champions League spot. Despite being unbeaten in February, we've fallen to 5th place, and the prospect of failing the challenge is becoming a very real possibility. Man United have played 2 games more than us though, so it's not time to panic just yet, but an injury to Leon Bailey has certainly dampened the mood. Haaland has already broken Alan Shearer and Andy Cole's 34-goal Premier League record. There's still 13 games to go. Unsurprisingly, that means another Player of the Month award. Jurgen Klopp has broken Guardiola's stranglehold on the Manager of the Month award, largely aided by Liverpool's 3-2 victory over Man City. Gabriel Martinelli becomes the first repeat winner of the Young Player of the Month award, and Goal of the Month honours goes to Patrick Bamford, who picked the ball up from the halfway line, beat his man before taking aim from 25 yards and scoring an absolute cracker. Not a sentence I ever imagined myself saying. We're off to London to face kit thieves West Ham. In an era where questions are constantly being asked about the moral and ethical nature of club ownership, it's nice to see a team like West Ham United, who are built on traditional values such as property extortion and softcore pornography. Declan Rice makes his first league start since damaging his cruciate ligaments in August, but sadly Lucas Paqueta did not feature, and so my exceptionally original jokes about Tilda and Uncle Ben's will go to waste. The atomic Emi Buendia got his 4th goal against the Hammers this season, barely 30 seconds in. 6 minutes later, and goal scorer becomes creator, as Buendia dinks the ball over the top for Watkins to side foot home. In an ideal world, the floodgates would open, and a series of devastating counter-attacks would widen the gap further and help improve our goal difference. Instead, the game became a dirge. A win's a win. Fulham next, and a trip to Craven Cottage. Amazingly, it's been nearly 10 years since the statue of Michael Jackson, a man who had no affiliation with Fulham whatsoever, was removed from outside the stadium. Former owner Mohammed Al Fayed blamed Fulham's relegation in 2014 on the removal of that statue. Personally, I blamed it on the boogie. Back to the game, and Diego Carlos makes his first start after an Achilles tendon injury that has ruled him out since the save started. It was his defensive partner Dale Fry, however, who took the headlines, rising to head home Douglas Luiz's corner after half an hour. Coutinho gathered in a pass from Duran that was slightly behind him before taking aim from outside of the box to double the lead in what was ultimately a very comfortable win. Had it not been for the late second goal, I'd be talking about us being wasteful. 2-0, however, was probably a fair result, and a professional performance against a Fulham team who now find themselves very much in a relegation battle. There are few teams in Football Manager I hate more than Liverpool. Doesn't matter which edition, who the players are, who the manager is, they are the kryptonite to my Superman. The heel to my Achilles. The grass surface to my title ambitions. All to say, I am not looking forward to this game. In real life, their midfield was an issue, but in game this has been addressed by the January acquisition of Ugarte for £52 million. Ugarte starts, but so do Keita and Elliott, so maybe there's hope. Truth be told, it was a turgid game, but Alexander-Arnold's defensive languidness allowed Dany to drive unopposed before feeding little Emmy to give us the lead. We scored first in the reverse fixture though, so not going to get ahead of ourselves. At least not until Watkins chested down Cash's cross and poked it in via the woodwork. A monumental upset. Almost certainly undeserved in the eyes of Jurgen Klopp, who no doubt found fit to blame the weather, or the pitch, or the temperature, or the ball, or the broadcasters. A perfect month. 3 games, all 2-0 wins. It's only enough to see us move up to 4th, but we've opened up a gap between us and Man United. We're tied on points with Liverpool and Arsenal, and there's only 1 goal between us all in goal difference. It's almost a shame that Man City exists. Not least because it means that Pep Guardiola has denied me a chance of winning Manager of the Month, with his 5th award in 8. Underdog Ivan Toney has toppled Haaland, however, as the Norwegians' run of 6 consecutive Player of the Month awards comes to an end. Arsenal's Bukayo Saka is the Young Player of the Month. Goal of the Month goes to Luis Diaz, who channels his inner Patrick Bamford, beating a man on the halfway line before driving into the box to open the scoring against Leicester. In spite of my apathy, we've made the final. An undeserved win over Brentford, an easy tie against Blackpool, penalty wins over Brighton then Cardiff, and a 3-2 aggregate victory over Chelsea in a tie that meant we played one another 4 times in 50 days. Only perennial bridesmaids Tottenham Hotspur stand in between us and our first domestic trophy since 1996. A nervy tie. Bitty and lacking in rhythm. Both teams had their chances, but refused to take them. Eventually quality won out. Oliver, George, Arthur Watkins, and the little Emiliano Buendia Stati were the difference makers. Navas and Sanchez with the consolation effort, but it was too little, too late. Aston Villa are your new Carabao Cup champions. A fine way to end the episode. Silverware in hand, there is an argument we have already surpassed the achievements of Unai Emery. But this was not the challenge. Our focus is firmly on breaking into the top 4, and, with 11 games remaining, it is finally poised. Join me in the next episode to see if Villa can hold on and bring Champions League football back to Villa Park. If you've made it this far, thank you. Please consider leaving a like or a comment, or if you're feeling super generous, please subscribe. Until next time.